Donald Trump is everywhere, isn't he? Yes, it's America's Evil Genius back with you today, and yes, like practically everybody else on the planet, I want to spend a little time today talking about Donald Trump. But I want to do it in a rather different way than everybody else has been doing it. I don't want to do just another presentation where I come out here and say, oh, you hear what Donald Trump said, or can you believe that, or wow, he really upset that person over there. No, I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to actually look at the prospective Donald Trump campaign, if indeed it exists, or if indeed it is going to amount to anything, and look at Donald Trump's viewpoints and history on a few topics, and actually make a decision and make an analysis of whether he would make a good president or not. Get all the personality stuff aside, get all the soundbite stuff aside, and actually analyze his viewpoints, his beliefs, his actions, his policies, and ask the question, will this guy be a good president or not? Now, how am I going to do that? How am I going to go to that level? Well, I'm going to start doing something today with Donald Trump that going forward I plan on doing with every serious Republican presidential candidate leading up to the primaries. I figure that when you've got a number of different things to select between and to choose from, as we certainly will in the presidential campaign of 2012, I've always thought the best way to do that is just like a business does it. You compare it numerically, you compare those different things to each other numerically as best you can, apples to apples, and whoever has the better number wins. Seems to me to be the most fair way to do it. So that's what I want to do with this. Now, how are we going to analyze this? Well, if you recall, back in February, during the very first America's Evil Genius show, I set forth, and I made a point that there were 5 issues that I consider to be the most important issues going into the 2012 election, and that whichever candidate, whomever they might be, who came closest to my views on those 5 issues was going to be the candidate that I supported and would advise others to support. Now, those 5 issues, in case you have forgotten them, the 5 issues were: number 1, a dedication to smaller and less government; number 2, illegal immigration; number 3, the war on Middle Eastern culture; number 4, free market economics; and number 5, a focus and an advocacy of American culture and American exceptionalism. Now, if you want a little bit more about how I feel on those 5 topics, go check out AEG number 1. It's a 2-part series. It will go through my viewpoints on each of those 5 things in detail. But suffice it to say that I want to look at those 5 categories and take Donald Trump's opinions and actions and stances in those 5 categories and see how well they compare to mine. And going forward, I want to do the same thing to each of the other candidates that come out. As I do this today, and we will go through each of those 5 categories with Mr. Trump, as I do that today, I'm going to assign a letter grade in each of those categories to Donald Trump. A, B, C, D, F, just like we remember having in school. So everybody's familiar with it. And then at the end of the presentation, when we've got his grades in on each of those 5 categories, we're going to total them up and average them, just like the old GPA, the grade point average that you remember from school. Give them a GPA and look at that number and analyze it and say, hey, is that a good number? Is it a bad number? What do we expect? So, and again, going forward, I want to do the same exercise, the same activity with all the other candidates. And here in about 6 months, 8 months, a year, we're going to be able to come out here and list every single candidate on the screen and put their presidential GPA, if you will, right next to them in that screen, and we're going to see who has the highest score. Whoever has got the highest score is the one we should support. Seems like the most logical way to figure all this out. And we're going to start with Trump today. So, the first of the 5 categories, smaller and less government, the dedication to smaller and less government. Where is Donald Trump on that? Well, if you've heard any of his interviews recently, he does at least attempt to talk a good game on that, or make the appearance that he's talking a good game. He has talked about being more fiscally responsible than Barack Obama is. Not that it's terribly hard to be more fiscally responsible than Barack Obama is, but Trump is at least acknowledging that and making the overtures that he's going in that direction. In fact, when he was on the Rush Limbaugh program on the 15th of April, I believe it was, which was quite a coup for him to get on that program anyway, because any of you who listen to Rush know that he very rarely interviews anybody on that show. But Trump did get an opportunity on that program, And he talked about raising the debt ceiling, which has been a bone of contention lately. And Trump said, and I'm quoting from him, as far as the budget, I don't like raising the ceiling. You know, you can solve the problem now. Why should we keep waiting? That's the problem. We keep waiting and waiting and waiting. So in that respect, at least in that one statement, Trump did say something that sounded sort of like the right thing. Enough with this raising the debt ceiling garbage, and enough with this every 2 weeks we do another spending to get us through a couple of weeks. Let's solve the problem once and for all. Okay, well, I'm encouraged by that. But what I find a little bit lacking is that even in discussing that, he does talk a little bit about fiscal responsibility, but he really doesn't go so far as to really trumpet the virtues of smaller government. And you wonder if with Trump it's just about making the country more financially viable, which would be a very good thing, or if he's willing to go as far as some of us are and say, we don't need to just reduce spending, we need to reduce the government. We need to get the government out of our lives. Is he a small government person, or is he just fiscally responsible? I want a president that's both. I think that Trump might be the first, but maybe not the second. So I'd like to see a little bit more from him in terms of advocating smaller government. And then there's the past of Donald Trump that's a little bit worrying in some regards. Trump, and make no mistake, he's excellent with the media. He's excellent at putting a message out there that's very accessible, very media savvy in that regard. And in that respect, in his recent media appearances, he's kind of tried to sound and portray himself as the ultimate conservative. But if you look at his history, you wonder if he's been that way all along, or if he really is a conservative, or maybe if he's just trying to say what he needs to say to get elected. I mean, I don't know, but just look at what he's advocated in the past. There's an article over on Politico that talks about the Club for Growth when they came out, when Trump started making overtures at the Oval Office, and they came out and said, hey, wait, not so fast. This guy's not exactly small government as you think. Their president, a guy named Chris Chicola, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, he put out a statement. He said Donald Trump has advocated for massive tax increases that display a stunning lack of knowledge on how to create jobs. So, in the past, the guy has advocated tax increases. That's not real positive. And then in 2000, he put out a book that's called The America We Deserve. And in that book, he actually voiced support for a universal health care plan. In the book, he said, let's just quote from him in the book. I mean, this is a direct quote from him here. The objective should be to make reforms for the moment, and longer term, to find an equivalent of the single-payer plan that is affordable, well-administered, and provides freedom of choice. Wow. Now, I understand that since that time, Trump has, at least recently, kind of backed off of that, and he has at least made the appearance of being opposed to Obamacare, but man, that's a tough one to overcome. And let's face it, for my money, and for a lot of other people's money out there, advocating any kind of government involvement in healthcare or a single-payer system or anything like that, in this day and age, that is practically the unforgivable sin in terms of politics. I don't know if I can, as a voter, if I can overcome that. That's very troubling. In my mind, Trump's going to have to do an awful lot to convince me that he's truly changed his position on that, and be able to illustrate why he's changed his position. Because I don't want to be caught in a situation where he just pulls the wool over our eyes with a little bit of rhetoric, kind of like Obama did to the Democrats. So there's the skinny on Trump on smaller government. He's saying some of the right things, but you don't get the full viewpoint that he's truly in favor of smaller government, and there are some things in his past that indicate he might not be. So what grade am I going to give him on that? Right now I've got to give him a D. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, give him a C, but the more I thought about it, the more, man, if you've advocated single-payer health care, I don't know how you come back from that. I mean, as Ricky Ricardo used to say to Lucy, Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Well, Donald Trump's got some splaining to do about that viewpoint, that unforgivable viewpoint. So I'm anxious to see how he dances around this and how he rectifies this. But for right now, I've got to give him a D on that topic. And let me be clear. As time goes on and these candidates come out and say different things and do different things, these grades can always be adjusted. I'm not above that. And if we make adjustments on these grades as we go forward with some of these candidates, I'll let you know. We'll bring it up on here. But for right now, I've got to give Trump a D in terms of less and smaller government. So let's move on to the second topic, illegal immigration. Well, Trump did come out when they had the controversy over the Arizona immigration law. He did come out in support of that, so that's a very positive thing. Trump did make an appearance on the Larry King show at the time, and you know, if you missed that appearance, by the way, you know, don't worry about it. Nobody else saw it either. It's Larry King. I mean, my God, Larry King used to get beaten in the ratings by the ShamWow guys. So if that Donald Trump appearance on Larry King went right under your radar, you're not alone. But he did show up on the show, and the 7 people that saw it heard Trump defend the Arizona law. He said it was necessary because of what he contended was the federal government's failure to control the border. Well, that's absolutely right. He said that people in Arizona had legitimate concerns about border security and drug violence, which they do, and the federal government is, in a lot of people's minds, not doing what is necessary to alleviate that. So, and he also said that anyone in the United States illegally should leave. Hallelujah! You're right on board with that. So, at least in terms of illegal immigration, Trump has said some things that are very encouraging in that regard. However, I have to also say that illegal immigration to this point has not been a point of real emphasis for Trump. And I know, to a point, you can only really answer the questions that the press asks you, but as I said before, Trump is so media savvy that he can play the media, and he can get them to ask the questions that he wants them to ask, or at least answer them in a way where he emphasizes what he wants to emphasize. So I would like to see more of an emphasis on that from him, and I really haven't seen it yet. So at this point, I'm encouraged, but not completely sold. The grade I'll give Trump on illegal immigration is a B. Give him a B on illegal immigration.